Good afternoon and welcome to Lariat TV News Today. I'm Melanie Pace.
And I'm Noah Tord. Thanks for joining us today for our special midterm election show. After a close race focused around Texas identity and values, incumbent Republican Senator Ted Cruz defeated Democrat rising star Beto O'Rourke with just under 51% of the votes. Beto conceded the race around 10:45 on election night. This will be Cruz's second term as U.S. Senator for Texas, and he is the first Hispanic American to serve Texas in that capacity. He is known widely for his tough stances on gun control and immigration. Historically, Texas has been a red state, and the voters affirmed that tradition. O'Rourke spent more on his campaign than any losing Senate candidate ever. It was centered around mobilizing voters, and he previously served 3 terms as the U.S. representative for Texas's 16th district, which includes most of El Paso County.
Local Republicans gathered to watch the election results at a watch party at the McLennan County Republican Party headquarters. LTVN's Emma Whitaker and I talked to a few conservatives about their feelings regarding Cruz's narrow Senate victory. McLennan County Republicans anxiously awaited election results last night at a watch party that included barbecue and a life-size Trump cutout.
Well, our expectations were high, still are. Because McLennan County is predominantly Republican, we have had a phenomenal voter turnout, which I think has surprised some of us. So we've had kind of a roller coaster ride, but we're still, the party's not over till the lights are turned off.
Well, I obviously believe Second Amendment's important. I think that it's disingenuous of the media to portray Beto or Robert O'Rourke as a moderate, because if you look at his voting record, he hasn't really crossed the aisle like Murkowski has, or Collins has, or even Manchin had. And so if you look at these 3 names, they're very well known because they get a lot of hate. It's hard to be a moderate, but it's easy to say you are and then vote pure party every time. And we see Robert O'Rourke is getting a ton of funding from out of states. There are even pictures I've seen on Facebook of Californians having a Beto sign on their lawn. And for me, as someone who's born in Texas, who's very curious about our local community, I don't think that outside money, I don't think that newspapers based in New York or in California should be dictating what Republicans here feel.
Which way is our country going to go? And I pray to the Lord it doesn't go socialist.
For Lariat TV News, I'm Melanie Pace.
Just across town from the Republican Party, local Democrats also came together at Mutalista Hall for an election watch party, and they had high hopes for their candidate. LTVN's Jenna Welch and Kennedy Dendy spoke with a few Baylor students to hear about their continual faith in O'Rourke and desire for compassion.
We're here tonight at an election watch party. We're hopefully going to watch Beto win this election, and we're here celebrating with a bunch of our friends and fellow coworkers.
This has been a really incredible experience. I've loved getting to know all of our fellow student fellows, getting to meet Baylor students who are supporters of Beto, getting to interact with Democrats in the Waco community. It's been a really incredible experience, and it's all about tonight. We're really excited.
Sort of the issues that are being brought up between different groups on campus. I really hope that this sets a standard for, compassion. One of the things that will really happen on campus, like she said, just really making it a more compassionate and more unified campus as a whole. I think that Beto's ability to reach across the aisle and work in a nonpartisan way, bipartisan way, I think that will really affect the tension on campus that's going on right now.
Local and state elections also saw primarily Republican winners, but similar to Cruz and O'Rourke, most races were close.
Republican Governor of Texas Greg Abbott defeated Democratic competitor and former Dallas County Sheriff Lupe Valdez with a little more than 55% of the votes for his second term. In the Lieutenant Governor race, incumbent Republican Dan Patrick defeated Democratic challenger Mike Collier with around 51%. And after running a quiet campaign, incumbent Republican Ken Paxton defeated Democratic candidate Justin Nelson with almost 51% for the Attorney General spot. Republican Comptroller of Public Accounts Glenn Hager maintained his position after defeating Democratic challenger Joy Chevalier with just over 53%. And with just under 54% of the votes, incumbent Republican George P. Bush defeated Democratic candidate Miguel Suazo for the Commissioner of the General Land Office. And after a tight race against Democrat Kim Olson, incumbent Republican Sid Miller walked away with 51% of the votes to secure his second term as Commissioner of Agriculture. And within the Oil and Gas Regulation Agency, Republican Christy Craddock sealed her second term as the Railroad Commissioner after defeating Roman McCallum with 53%. The incumbent state representative for District 56, which includes most of Waco, kept his seat. Charles Doc Anderson walked away with more than 65% of the votes, defeating Democrat Catherine Turner Pearson. Lifelong resident of McLennan County and Republican candidate Scott Felton defeated Democratic candidate Rick Allen for the county judge with 64% of the ballot. Democratic candidate Patricia Chisholm Miller is the new county commissioner for Precinct 2 after working as an assistant to the former commissioner, Lester Gibson. Chisholm Miller captured 58% of the vote to defeat former DPS state trooper D.L. Wilson.
Central Texas U.S. Congressmen Bill Flores, John Carter, and Roger Williams also kept their seats in Washington. Voter turnout in McLennan County was almost 20% higher than the last midterm election in 2014. This year, the county had roughly 54% of registered voters go to the polls. This is a stark comparison to 2014 when the county only had about 35% turnout. The local races did not garner as much attention as the national or gubernatorial races, but the vote totals were still notably higher than in 2014.
In Washington, Democrats picked up enough seats to take control and paint the House blue. A few key Senate races helped the Republicans hold on to the Senate majority, including states like Missouri and Tennessee. Joe Manchin retained the West Virginia Senate seat for the Democrats with just over 49% of the votes against Republican candidate Patrick Morrisey. And Republican Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, beat incumbent Bill Nelson for the Senate seat with just over 50% of the votes in a race that was close until the very end. In Indiana, Republican Mike Braun unseated Joe Donnelly with the Senate seat with just over 52% of the votes, flipping a key Senate seat for the GOP. And Republican Josh Hawley defeated incumbent Claire McCaskill for the Missouri Senate seat, claiming 44.8% of the votes in an increasingly red state. Nevada's Senate seat ended with Democratic candidate Jackie Rosen defeating incumbent Republican Senator Dean Heller with almost 50%. Marsha Blackburn won the Tennessee Senate for the Republicans with 55% of the votes, securing her spot as Tennessee's first woman senator after beating former Democratic Governor Phil Bredesen in the open race.
In the House, Democrat Lizzie Fletcher won a seat in Texas District 7 with 52% of the votes against Republican John Culberson. In Florida's District 27, Democrat Donna Shalala defeated Republican Maria Elvira Salazar for the House of Representatives with over 50%. Republicans also held on to a majority in governor races and secured a few toss-up states to do so. Democrat Andrew Gillum ended his bid to become Florida's first black governor after conceding to Republican Ron DeSantis, who won with just under 50% of the votes. Jared Polis, the Democrat from Colorado, has won the governor's race by over 50% and is now the first openly gay person to be elected governor in America. Democrat Laura Kelly won 48% of the votes for the Kansas governor race, defeating Chris Kobach after an often neck-and-neck race between both candidates. Thanks for watching our Lariat TV News Today election show.
And we'll see you on Friday for our regularly scheduled newscast. Have a great day.